Good evening and welcome back to the virtual Cambridge Union. I hope that you are having a very restful Easter term. Please join me as we welcome Ambassador Enna Park here to the virtual Cambridge Union. Ambassador Park is a South Korean diplomat serving as the South Korean ambassador to the UK as the first woman to assume that post. Previously, she was the Deputy Chief of Mission for Korean-Chinese Economic Cooperation and Deputy Minister of Public Diplomacy. She was awarded the Service Merit Medal for her contributions to diplomacy. Please welcome Ambassador Park as she gives a speech on UK-South Korea relations after Brexit, rebuilding diplomacy. Without further ado, please welcome Ambassador Park.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'd like to thank the Cambridge Union for hosting today's event and Tara for those kind words of introduction. I'd like to thank all of you online who have taken the time to be with us today. This is probably the last speech I will be making as Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to the UK since my term in London, sadly, is coming to an end soon. And I must say that it is a great honor for me to deliver such a personally meaningful speech to an institution as prestigious as yours. It is a shame I cannot be there in person due to the still ongoing pandemic, but I was lucky enough to have a privilege of visiting your campus in person just before the outbreak of COVID at the invitation of Darwin College. Meeting students and the faculties of Cambridge will remain as a very precious memory of the UK. Today, I'd like to speak to you about the relationship between the Republic of Korea and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, as long name. I will begin with an outline of history shared by our two countries, then talk about the changes I've seen during my 3 years in London, and then conclude by highlighting some of the areas where I believe our relations can continue to grow and develop in the future. History. Can you imagine what the first time encounter between our two peoples looked like? The first recorded encounter between British and Koreans came in 1797 when the HMS Providence arrived in Korea. At that time, the country name was Joseon. Unfortunately, there was some linguistic difficulties between the two groups, which led to the British to think that Joseon is the name of the harbor rather than the country they just arrived in. And for their part, the Koreans mistook their visitors for Dutch traders. Relations recovered after that initial misunderstanding. And in 1883, the UK became the second country after the US to establish diplomatic ties with Korea. Although official government relations broke off during the Japanese occupation of the Korean Peninsula between 1910 and 1945, several valiant British individuals stood alongside the Korean people against the colonial rule. A particular note was Ernest Thomas Bethel, the most famous historical British figure in Korea, who in 1904 founded the Korean Daily News, which features patriotic articles supporting independence of Korea. Bethel's newspaper became the most popular periodical in Korea at that time, as you can imagine. As a result, he suffered bitter recriminations from the colonial authorities, but he continued to work for the Korean independence until his death at the age of just 37. To mark his contribution to the Korean quest for independence, last year, the Korean government unveiled a plaque at the place of his birth in Bristol. Bethel did not live to see it, but the Korean Peninsula was finally liberated after the Second World War. Unfortunately, this marked the start of another deep fissure in Korean history, one that remains unresolved to this day, the division of the country. Following the Allied victory of Second World War, Korea was divided in much the same way as Germany was at the same time, with the US given responsibility of the South and Russia, at that time Soviet Union, in control of the North. Each power helped set up governments which were inclined to their respective ideology, communism in the North and capitalism in the South. In 1950, the Korean War broke out as North Korea, backed by communist bloc, invaded South Korea. In response to this aggression, the UK sent the second largest contingent troops to Korea, including Maurice Joseph Michael White, who later changed his name to Michael Caine, the famous actor we all know. In total, around 80,000 British troops, including young students of Cambridge, came to the peninsula between 1950 and 1953, and they played a crucial role in securing the freedom of the Korean people. In one famous battle, which is called Imjin or Gloucester Battle, 600 British soldiers faced as many as 30,000 Chinese troops who were crossing the Imjin River to head south. Despite the overwhelming odds, they defended their position for 3 days and nights. Their brave actions brought valuable time for the UN troops to successfully defend Seoul against the communist offensive. If the capital had fallen then, the history of the peninsula may have been quite different. Thankfully, their efforts helped to turn the tide of war, and today a memorial to their courage and sacrifice stands on the top of the hill they defended. Sadly, around 1,000 British troops passed away fighting for our freedom. You don't easily forget the friendship and solidarity formed during times of war. And Korea has never forgotten the heroic actions of our British friends. As a mark of appreciation, Korean War Memorial was built in Victoria Embankment Garden next to the River Thames and outside the Ministry of Defense. It acts as a symbol of solidarity as well as a token of gratitude for the noble sacrifices made to defend our freedom. The Republic of Korea has greatly changed since then. We have become a thriving democracy with a vibrant economy, the 11th largest economy in the world now. Korea holds the distinction of being the only country to go from being a recipient of foreign aid to becoming a major global aid donor. As we have changed, so too has our relationship with the UK. Today, our ties are spread across diverse fields, such electronics, finance, and automobile industry, and others. Korea is a major consumer of UK aircraft parts and Scots whiskey. In total, the economic trade between our two countries reached a record of $14.4 billion US. Korea is one of the major investors to the UK. Then, what I have witnessed in my time, the relationship is continuing to morph and develop. During my time in the UK, the country has gone through some major changes, which have also changed the relationship between the UK and Korea. When I arrived 3 years ago, Theresa May was trying to negotiate a Brexit deal, and none of us had ever heard of a coronavirus. Since then, Brexit has been achieved, and we are extremely pleased to be the first major trading country to sign a bilateral free trade agreement with the UK. We believe this will be a great boost, not just for both of our economies, but also for the personal and the cultural ties between our two countries. The fact that I'm speaking to you now online shows we are not yet free from the pandemic. But I'm pleased to see that the UK's reopening program, and actually today I went to a restaurant, and that was the first time dining indoor inside of the restaurant in 5 months. And its vaccine rollout have been so successful, and I hope this trend will continue throughout the summer and until the pandemic end. Despite the difficulties the coronavirus has brought, I'm encouraged by how closely UK and Korea have been able to work together through this unprecedented time. High-level phone calls have continued to take place on a regular basis, including that between Prime Minister Johnson and President Moon, discussing both pandemic-related issues and our plans for life in a COVID-free world. Former Prime Minister Theresa May and the Secretary Dominic Raab both visited Korea to speak about these matters. And just this month, the first trip undertaken by Korea's new foreign minister was to come to the UK for strategic talks. We have come a long way since Koreans, since the Koreans thought the British were Dutch, and the British thought Joseon was a harbor. There has been major changes to both our countries and to the relations between us. This trend of change and growth is likely to continue in the coming years. Technological advances like artificial intelligence, 5G communications, electric cars, and clean energy like hydrogen power are likely to dramatically change both of our societies. These are the areas where we can work together. British research and development and the Korean high-tech manufacturing can combine to achieve extraordinary things. Personally, I'm excited to see the fruits of this collaboration. I have no doubt that a future ambassador will be speaking to a room full of future students, singing the praises of a yet unknown British-Korean collaboration that people in the future cannot dream living without. It is not just economically that our two countries have been growing closer. Indeed, we are working together to tackle global challenges with a view to building a better world. In the UK's recent integrated review of security, defense, development, and foreign policy, published just months ago, UK government set out its strategic aim of an Indo-Pacific tilt. The government regards it as vital to its interest that UK engages more in Asia and South and East Asia in particular. The review identified Korea as a key player in the success of this strategy. We are pleased to hear it, and we look forward to working more closely than ever with the UK. As signal of this new phase of diplomatic collaboration, Korea has been invited to attend this year's G7 as a guest of UK, which is the host country of the group this year. It was a great honor for Korea, made all the more poignant if you consider where we were at the end of the Second World War, one of the poorest countries in the world. And we have stated our intention to work collaboratively with all other members of G7 on a coordinated response to some of the toughest global challenges of our time, from vaccine rollout to ending discrimination, tackling climate change, building back better from a year of lockdowns and economic contraction, and upholding open society in the world. Of course, this is only possible because of the values we share with the UK. Values such as human rights, democracy, open society, market economy, and rule norm-based order. These shared values underpin all of our diplomatic work and are strengthened through the interest we both have in each other's cultures. I believe in the power of culture. Relations between countries are about interactions between citizens as much as they are about meetings in the Blue House or Downing Street. British authors, artists, scientists, and universities are famous throughout the world. Well, of course, including Korea. The music of Beatles, the works of Jane Austen and J.K. Rowling give people who have never visited these shores a sense of your country in a way that a visit from Boris Johnson never could. For many years, these British cultural exports helped develop a positive reputation and soft the power of Britain abroad, making the work of its diplomats a little bit easier. I'm proud to say that during my time in the UK, I have witnessed a growing interest and appreciation for Korean culture in the UK. You may have heard of BTS, Blackpink, and Parasites, haven't you? I hope you have. I was lucky enough to attend one of the two sold-out shows. The K-pop band BTS performed at Wembley Stadium in 2019. It gave me a great sense of joy to witness thousands of people's, well, actually tens of thousands of people, not just there to see a Korean band, but actually singing along to the Korean lyrics. I hope some of them have continued their studies and have been able to learn more Korean so they can enjoy not just the more K-pop, but all of what Korean culture can offer. Being able to speak each other's language gives you a great insight into people's lives and a culture. If an interest in Korean culture stimulates this, it's only a good thing. Today is perhaps the best time to develop such an interest, as Korean culture is becoming more accepted and enjoyed all over the world. There are more Korean restaurants throughout the UK, not just in London. Many K-pop dramas are available to stream on internet platforms. And of course, last year, a Korean film, Parasite, won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture. Perhaps the most tangible sign of this is the growth in the number of students who want to study or visit Korea for their degree. There are now 5 Korean studies centers at universities throughout the UK. In 2019, there were over thousands Koreans studying in the UK and growing number of British students studying in Korea. We hope that number will continue to rise. The growth in interest in each other's culture is a huge building block that help us work together and share ideas in the future. And we will need both collaboration and big ideas to help solving the biggest challenge of our time, which is climate change. Earlier this year, Korean government announced its plan for a Green New Deal to boost green economy. We will expand the use of solar and the wind power and install smart grids and meters to ensure infrastructure is more efficient. And we hope to see 1.2 million new electric vehicles on Korean roads by 2055. Korea has also committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050, and we have ended the financing for coal projects both in Korea and overseas. We are proud of our achievements, but we know it is not yet enough. However, as a late industrialized country which does not bear historic responsibility for the current climate change, as well as a country which is heavily dependent on fossil fuel, Korea's bold attitude and actions to share global responsibility for the world and the future generations will have more moral voice and strong leadership, encouraging other countries to do more, as rightly praised by Foreign Secretary Rob at our recent bilateral strategic dialogue. This year, we are looking forward to working with UK to achieve an ambitious target and action plans at Glasgow COP26 and the global fight against climate change. This will be the most important measure of the strengths of our relations between the UK and the Republic of Korea. Can we work together to ensure a stable climate for all, one in which we and the future generations can thrive? I believe this is possible, and we look forward to working with the UK in the lead up to the vitally important summit in November. Now, conclusion. The challenges and opportunities before us today would be unimaginable to those at the first meeting between Brits and Koreans at Busan Harbor, my beautiful hometown, almost 300 years ago. But we have shown since that meeting that we are capable of rising to any challenge. Although I'm leaving London soon, I look forward to working with my British friends and colleagues for many years to come. I will remain as a genuine friend of the UK and a stronger promoter of our friendship and partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Park, for that speech and for bestowing us the honor of one of your last speeches as ambassador. We will surely miss you. For the next portion of the event, I'd like to pass it on to Chung-il Peter Han, who will be interviewing Ambassador Park today. He is a first-year PhD student in the Faculty of Asian and Middle Eastern Studies. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tara. 안녕하세요, 대사님. Good evening, Ambassador. I think I should do this interview in English, I'm afraid, but I do believe that this is a great privilege and honor to have this final interview with you. And I must say that you didn't speak it out loud in your speech, but one of the things that I really would like to appreciate is your effort to create the e-gates in the border so that the South Korean citizens are freely able to use the e-gates when they do the immigration checks. So I must say I'm really, really grateful for all the effort that you have invested to make that happen during your term. And you've definitely covered a lot of topics in your talk, but I would like to start with this, the current developments in the UK and South Korea's security cooperation. So as you mentioned in your talk, the UK government recently released the integrated review, and it really specified how it would like to achieve this Indo-Pacific tilt by focusing more opportunities in terms of business and trade, and also forging greater security ties in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, if I'm not mistaken, President Moon Jae-in, one of his foreign policy backbones is called New Southern Policy, which is also known in Korean as 신남방 정책. And I do believe that the UK's vision in Indo-Pacific region has a lot in common with South Korean Foreign Ministry's New Southern Policy. Could you say probably what are the similar overlaps between these two approaches, and where can the UK and South Korea can cooperate in terms of security?
Thank you very much for commending one of my achievements during my stay in London as ambassador. Actually, when I arrived in UK, I noticed that e-gate policy would be introduced, giving favor or benefits to Five Eye countries only, and I approached the UK government and persuaded that Korea is a really genuine partner for UK. So you have to open the door for Korean citizens too. So that's how Korean citizens were included in those those beneficiaries. So Korean people, when they arrived in UK without any immigration check, you just touch their passport on the machine and the door is open, and they're so proud of being Korean. So it's one of my achievements. I am so proud of that, giving some benefit to our own citizens. Well, you said you're afraid of asking questions to me in English, and I'm afraid that I have to answer in English because most audience they don't understand the Korean, and someday I hope I can answer in Korean. UK Korea security cooperation. Both of our countries, we have same idea how we can build up more stable and peaceful order in the Pacific region. So your UK aircraft carrier will visit Korea in September, and it is a sign of increasing our collaboration in security field. And your question about Korea's new Southern policy, yes, we have a new Southern policy where we can find some commonality between UK's Indo-Pacific tiered strategy focusing on East Asia and particularly South Asia. The concept, the principle of our Southern policy, there are certain principles which are prosperity. Well, we would like to enhance economic prosperity with those countries, focusing on infrastructure, energy, digital economy, smart cities, and natural resources, environment friendly management. And second principle is people. We want to build together with the Southeast Asian countries a people-centered community while championing good governance by investing in human resources development and anti-corruption programs, etc. Then third principle is peace, ensuring peace and security through capacity building efforts to counter transnational crimes, promoting cybersecurity, maritime environmental protection, and disaster response and preparedness. I believe Korea and UK have same vision toward this reason. So that's why we can coordinate, we can collaborate together to achieve these goals.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your response. And I definitely believe that the future is very bright, that we can have lots of rooms to cooperate together. Now, in your talk, you briefly mentioned the difficulties around thinking about UK-South Korean free trade agreement while the Brexit was being negotiated. And do you, now looking back, 2 years or 3 years before, do you think Brexit was an opportunity for South Korea to forge better economic relations with the UK? And do you think it was rather a challenge that made a lot of South Korean business gave headaches to the South Korean businessmen?
Well, as Brexit itself is quite a complicated one. Our perception on the consequences is also quite complicated. It's a challenge, of course, and same time it's opportunity. As to challenges, we have to cope with Brexit agreement, and earlier we had a comprehensive FTA with EU. Now UK has a separate arrangement, and UK between UK and EU, you have many issues to solve. So it causes some challenges for our business people, but we also see opportunities because the UK can now pursue its own independent economic policies based on UK's own judgment and taking into account the UK specific situations. And the UK is now trying to build more stronger partnership with non-EU countries like Korea. So it's the door is wider for Korean investors and Korean business people to enter the UK market. So that is an opportunity we should explore together.
Right, absolutely. And I do believe that the update for the agreement is due soon. So I do believe that now that the uncertainty of Brexit has disappeared, now that the both sides can think more creatively in terms of way forward. Now I'd like to switch gears a little bit and would like to focus our attention to the issues in the East Asia in general. As a South Korean, I always had this question in my mind that I always wanted to raise with Ambassador, if I may. Sometimes, as an ordinary South Korean citizen, it feels that South Korea is like a little shrimp between two big whales.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we are. And we often have this Korean saying called 고래 싸움에 새우등 터진다, or the shrimp's back will be broken by the fight between the two big whales.
We are bigger than shrimp, I think.
There are tiger shrimps or the big shrimps out there, but I do believe that quite aptly describes what's happening in the Korean Peninsula. Because South Korea has its own alliance relationship with the United States, but at the same time, we recognize the importance of China as our neighbor and also its influence over the North Korean issues that we would like to resolve. So, and I think the Korean government has been pursuing the idea of middle power diplomacy, where South Korea can actually balance, making this very difficult balance between two major superpowers in the globe in terms of geopolitics. So, Ambassador, if I may ask this question, as this, growing tiger shrimp as a South Korean citizen, how do you see the future of South Korea's diplomacy in these two major superpowers, because at some point, I think that South Korea is now being forced to choose one out of two. So I would really value your thoughts on this matter.
Well, you gave me a very tough question, and it is the right time to visit the elephant in the room, U.S.-China relations and its implication for the Korean diplomacy. The future of U.S.-China relationship is one of the first and foremost concerns, not only for Korea, but also for many others. This holds the key to how the current international order will be reshaped. Given the continuing trend of narrowing gap in relative power of UK and China, elements of competition and friction are likely to grow. But I don't think it necessarily means that we have to choose one over the other in a comprehensible way. But in my opinion, rule-based management of conflicting elements will help prevent them from spiraling out of control. It remains to me to be seen whether and how the vacuum of global leadership in Trump period will be filled by US and China. At Alaska meeting, I remember Secretary Blinken mentioned that the US relationship with China will be comparative when it should be, the collaborative when it can be, and adversarial when it must be. It would not be Korea only who expect the US strategy will lead to less adversarial but more collaborative relations while consolidating core values of freedom, democracy, and open society in a strategic way, even though it is not quite easy. Two countries must find a way together to urgently show up the weakened global consensus to cope with worsening global challenges. It is evident that US cannot engineer global solutions to the mounting global challenges alone. The failure would push the world into an uncertain and turbulent era. This must be avoided for their own enlightened self-interest. And at the same time, I hope that China comes one step forward to cooperate in a constructive manner with all stakeholders in the region for the same, for the common good of all. Korea as middle power, we will, and also as ally of United States, we will take our part, we will play our role to uphold our values, democracy, open society, transparency, and human rights. And particularly, I mean, in Northeast Asia, to solve North Korean nuclear issues, US, China, they should collaborate. Otherwise, any perceived gap in respective positions of US and China will be exploited by DPRK, North Korea. That is not what either nor US or China wants. So both US and China must accept their shared responsibility in ensuring peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I've always thought this question as, South Korea should make the choice, but actually South Korea holds the key to solve the whole the process of the peace process in the Korean Peninsula. And I think the way if we just switch the table, I think it is actually South Korea that actually who's at the stake, holds the stake in this interesting developments. And another element that I would like to address is the South Korea's soft power. And as a former ambassador for public diplomacy, Ambassador Park, I think you're the one who's best suited to know that South Korea is very proud of its cultural products. not only BTS or Parasite, but also a lot of Korean dramas are now being watched by a lot of people here in the United Kingdom. And recently, two of my Cambridge friends, Helen and Joe, they came to me and said, have you seen this South Korean drama about a North Korean military officer falling in love with a South Korean businesswoman? It's called Crash Landing on You. And in Korean, it's 사랑의 불시착. And I think it gained quite a lot of popularity, not only in South Korea, but in Japan and also in the UK here as well. And, you know, these two couples, because they're separated, the only way to resolve this dilemma is Korean unification, my friend told me once. So I do believe that the drama has changed the way people think about North Korea in a very different way. Of course, North Korea's nuclear problem is a security challenge that we need to resolve. But at the same time, there is ordinary life in North Korea, and there are citizens living inside North Korea. And I think the drama really well captured those moments. So my question is, have you seen that drama? And if not, if you can, in general, in broader terms, what kind of cultural representations that you wish to see so that the peace process can be reignited?
Well, soft landing, what in Korean is 사랑의 불시착, soft landing of love, translated in,
yes.
crash, okay, crash, I'm sorry, not soft landing, crash landing. Since my British friends recommended me to watch it, I just started to watch it. I finished just one or two episodes at the very beginning. It's very creative one. Surely the worldwide success of K-pop, K-drama, and K-movie has made a big contribution to the image and the national brand of Korea. It makes my mission as ambassador to promote the Korean brand a little easier. And I may have to take some portion of my salary to pay or reward them. It's just a joke. I don't think the popularity of Korean culture or Korean drama is the intended outcome of our public diplomacy. The essence of Korean pop culture, movies and the dramas, is the creativity and innovation of artists. Government or diplomacy does not have any role in it. It's quite opposite, I think. And government promotion or intervention in those cultural industry easily backfire. What government and diplomacy can do, in my opinion, is to try to facilitate the introduction of those purely civilian cultural products to foreign audience at initial stage. But for Korean pop culture, it already passed that stage. Netflix is so eager to invest the Korean film industry, showing those to the world. Our public diplomacy focuses on two fields. One is promoting better understanding of Korea. I mean, Korean study, history, language, and culture in general. The other thing is galvanizing international support to our national goals, such as peace, stability of the Korean Peninsula, denuclearization, and ultimate unification. In this regard, I believe UK's role is quite important, taking into account that there are so many influential think tanks like Chatham House, IISS, and RUSI, prestigious academic institutes like Cambridge, among others, and global media such as BBC, Reuters, Financial Times, and others. UK is truly an international opinion leader, setting discourses on many international policies, including Korean Peninsula issues. So throughout the public diplomacy efforts, like today's session, I hope we can mobilize more support to our goal for lasting peace and eventual unification. You students are our future leaders. So if I can get your support and your heart and mind, then our policy toward peace and eventual unification, we can get international support in next generation, full support, and we may realize. Thank you.
Yes, you have my full support, Ambassador. I mean, I definitely can't give my full support to you. I think I do have my my time is almost up, but I do have one final question that I really wanted to ask. So you were the first female ambassador appointed to one of the major powers from a South Korean perspective, and we had our previous foreign minister was Minister Kang Kyung-hwa, who was also a female. And so I've read a lot of news articles saying that the glass ceiling within the South Korean foreign ministry has finally broken. But
it's going to be broken, not some cracks, but not yet broken.
Absolutely, and exactly that's why I would like to ask this question. So I definitely see that this is heading to the right direction, but I definitely want to see more and more women to work in the diplomatic career. So how can South Korean foreign ministry, as well as any other foreign ministries in the world, to be more inclusive and diverse? And do you have any final thoughts on that regard? Thank you.
Well, when I joined the foreign ministry 37 years ago, there have been only 2 female diplomats before me. So whatever I do, I was the first female in that position. When I was seconded to the Blue House President's office, I was the first female diplomat working at the Blue House. When I was posted to Korean mission to the United Nations, I was the first female diplomat at the Korean female diplomat in the United Nations, and Beijing same. However, I'm very much encouraged to see these days newly recruited junior diplomats more than 50%, and some years 60%. Newly recruited diplomats are female. So in our foreign ministry, above director general level, female percentage is around 5, less than 10%, by 5%, but the director level is 25% already, and working level more than half. So we also apply the affirmative action in favor of male candidate to ensure 30% of recruitment minimum. So it's very good trend, and but as I say, the above director general level and above ambassadorial level, we don't have many females. So until at the bottom number of female diplomats, they get promoted to the higher level, we still need to give more thoughts to female candidates, not only from the career diplomats, but from other fields in the society, like academia and other expert field. We can recruit very promising candidates for the higher positions. That's what many other countries are doing.
Thank you very much for your response, Ambassador Park. Now over to you, Tara.
Thank you so much, Peter and Ambassador Park, for that interview. Just a reminder that you can submit your question on our Facebook page, and I'll read it out now. The first question is from Kieran from Homerton, who asks, what does it mean to South Korea to see such great and historic achievements from those like Yoo Jong-yeon and BTS?
Well, it's as I said in my presentation, or not presentation, my response to Han Chung-il's questions about public diplomacy. I said the key is the creativity and innovation of the artists. So there is no limitation of imagination and the creativity of young people. And they are quite different from older generations. And the energy from the young Korean people, it's fully translated into the cultural products. Well, it's purely the credit of the artist's creativity and innovation, I think. And maybe foreign audience can give better explanation why Korean pop culture is so successful. But I just say that it's thanks to freedom and the scope of imagination and creativity has not been limited in Korea.
Thank you so much. Another question's just come in that asks, what do you think are the most important initiatives for South Korea and the UK to work together to tackle climate change?
Well, till recently, developing countries, they show the big reservation about the declaring carbon zero target year, because they are they think it is not fair to restrict their economic development and to by limiting using of the available most economic energy resources, which is oil and gas. But Korea is it used to be a developing country. We have transformed our economy from developing to developed. But we have recent experience as a developing country, and we don't have any historic responsibility of the accumulated green gas, but by showing our willingness to take responsibility for future generations, we can set an example to other countries. So it is very difficult decision to stop financing coal power plant domestically and abroad. We financed many coal power plants abroad, but we decided not to support, and we suspended our financing for those projects, and it can encourage other countries which are doing similar things to follow Korea's path. So that is the division of role between UK and South Korea, and by working together, by playing its own role, we are sure that we can make a progress.
Thank you. Another question that's just come in asks about what your favorite moment as ambassador has been.
Well, one of the biggest soft power elements of UK is your monarchy. And when I presented my letter of credence to Her Majesty, that was a very, very memorable moment for me. And she remembered her visit to Korea 20 years ago, and she appreciated what Korean people offered to welcome her visit. So it's Her Majesty, a symbol of the UK, and she recognize the importance of Korea, the importance of partnership between the UK and Korea. So it gave me quite big excitement. That was a quite memorable moment I had.
Thank you so, so much, Ambassador Park. I think that is time for this evening. I want to give a special shout out to the Cambridge University Korean Society for helping us with this event. And thank you so much to Peter and to all of our viewers here. This was really enjoyable. And I hope you all have a great rest of the evening. Just looking at the week ahead, we are starting with in-person events tomorrow with Joel Dommett. On Wednesday, we have 2 events, a virtual panel on democracy in America, the Constitution in Historical Perspective, which we're co-hosting with the Laslet Society, for the history of ideas, and our in-person panel exploring mental health after Love Island with 3 Love Islanders in collaboration with Student Minds Cambridge after Mental Health Awareness Week. On Thursday, we are having our first in-person Thursday night debate since Michaelmas term on the motion, "This House Would Break Up Big Tech." A reminder that the auditions form is currently open and we would love to see you audition. It's been sent out in your member email, and you can also find it on our Facebook. On Friday, we are hosting 2 lovely events in person, with hosting Lady Leisure at 4 p.m. and hosting Roger Mosey in conversation with Ian Dale at 7 p.m. On Saturday, we are hosting virtually a panel on the male gaze in media. All of our events this week are open to all, so please do come along and experience the magic of the Cambridge Union in person again. Thank you so much to Ambassador Park and Peter for tonight's event, and we hope to see you soon. Stay safe and stay well.